When we think of the concept of meditation, we often call to mind maybe an image of a monk on the side of a mountain in a lotus position, maybe even levitating. And meditation can seem like it's purely a spiritual activity that is designed and built for people with specific beliefs. But the reality is, in 2020, what we understand about meditation is that, although yes, you can incorporate your spiritual beliefs into meditation, the fact is, the reality is, that meditation is an exercise that is essentially like doing push-ups, except for your brain. Just the way when you do push-ups, you don't need to have a specific belief system. You simply get on the ground, you do the push-ups, and over time, your chest becomes stronger. And if you stop doing the push-ups, over time, you don't reap the benefits in the same way as when you're actively doing them. And that's a great analogy for meditation. Meditation isn't a pill or a quick fix, and it's not complicated to do, but it does take effort, and you do have to do it. In this video, I want to share with you not only the benefits of meditation, but how you can begin to practice it. So first, let's start with the benefits. Like, why would we even want to meditate? Because, again, spiritual beliefs aside, and you can absolutely incorporate them if you have them, and if you have no spiritual beliefs, that's fine too. Because ultimately, what happens in meditation is this. It increases parts of your brain, the functioning, that is absolutely phenomenal. So research across the world in different areas have demonstrated that meditation can improve your hippocampus, which is the center of your memory. So you can benefit your memory by doing meditation. You can improve the functioning of your fight or flight response. So let me tell you why that's important. If you've gone through stuff in your life, you can have a fight or flight response that is a little quicker to snap, to be able to handle things physically, quickly, even when the situation might not warrant it. But when you meditate, you actually improve that area of your brain called the amygdala. So that's phenomenal. There's a part of your brain called the cingulate gyrus, and that regulates your emotion and pain. And that part improves. You are able to improve a part of your brain called the default mode network. And that sounds fancy, but listen to this. We all have a running internal dialogue of anywhere between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day. Now, when you meditate, it's not like you get rid of your thoughts. But that default mode network, it actually quiets down. Your blood pressure improves. Cardiovascular system is improved. So there are absolutely there's evidence neurologically that meditation helps. And in the same way as there is a direct one-to-one correlation with doing push-ups and getting a stronger chest, when you meditate, you get improved brain functioning. So now, how do you do it? How do you meditate? Well, first of all, there's no one way to meditate. There are multiple ways to meditate. There's not just a right way and a wrong way. But meditation is different than relaxation. We all need relaxation. We need time where we can lie back and just chill and take our minds off the world. But meditation is not relaxation. Meditation is actually an active process. Even though your body can ideally sit perfectly still, your brain is still actively processing this exercise. I would call it a mental exercise. So again, lots of different ways to do it, but one of the most basic ways is to sit up. And when we sit up, our spinal cord is aligned in a way that allows a part of our brain called the reticular formation to be activated. And that is our waking alert part of our brain. So when we sit up, we are engaging in this active process. And again, you can do meditation in lots of different ways. This is just the first basic way I'm sharing. When you can keep your body still, in other words, maybe you have an itch while you're meditating. And if I have an itch and I want to scratch it, that's fine. If you want to move and scratch it, that's fine. But consider this. What if you have an itch, but you choose not to scratch it? Now, I want you to think about this, because you know as well as I do that we master what we practice. And so if my impulse is to scratch, but I say to myself, wow, my head is itchy, that's unfortunate. It's not the end of the world. I don't need to scratch it in this moment. Even if I want to, I don't need to. I'm okay. Imagine if over and over again, day in, day out, I practice that when I have an impulse to do something, I don't need to react and satiate or satisfy that impulse. Imagine what that does to your brain over time if you consistently practice having an impulse to do something, but choosing to sit with it instead. There is a phrase in meditation, a still body is a still mind. A still body is a still mind. In other words, if I move around to scratch and I move around to satiate or satisfy impulses, then my mind is actively on those impulses. But if I can practice stillness, then my mind follows suit. Now think about this. In practicing stillness, you'll notice that I'm not saying you need to sit in a place of complete quietness, because that's not ideal. That might be ideal to sit in a place where it's completely quiet, but it's not realistic. Life is going to happen. I'm bringing you this video from my own meditation room in my house. And we have two very big dogs. Now, for the most part, when we meditate here and we ring a bell to meditate, our dogs, kind of like Pavlov's dogs, will just lie down. But they're dogs, and if they see a rabbit or something, they could get up and bark. Now, just because they bark doesn't mean I say, oh, I guess I can't meditate because they're making noise, or I need to get them to be quiet. Instead, I think, that's interesting. The dogs are barking. It's not the end of the world. I can handle it. And again, practicing this day in and day out. This is why I teach meditation even in restricted housing units, where you know that it can be really loud. Maybe someone's really struggling and they want to be loud and distract others. If that happens, if you find that your mind says, he should calm down, or she shouldn't make noise, whatever your thoughts are, think about this. That person shouldn't be doing this. But what if you practice saying, I would choose for that person not to be doing this right now, but it's not the end of the world, and I can handle it. And you stay focused. You stay in that stillness. This is why it's very important in meditation to practice stillness. And again, you're not wrong or bad or messing up if you have an itch and you choose to scratch it. But I want you to be mindful that we master what we practice. And if we can practice stillness, then eventually we master it. Now, sitting up and keeping your back straight, and if it's possible to close your eyes, that's not always possible, but if it's possible to close your eyes, that's a good idea, only in the sense that for me, if my eyes are open, I might get distracted by something I see. So I would invite you to close your eyes if you're in a safe spot and you feel comfortable enough to do so. But again, There's no right or wrong, so you don't have to have your eyes closed. You can absolutely have them open if you choose. On top of the back straight and sitting up, a still body, when your mind, oftentimes people will say, well, what do you think about? Well, the goal here is to become an observer. So it's not that you're following a specific set of thoughts. It's that you're watching those thoughts. So for instance, if you're sitting in stillness and your mind starts to say things like, this is stupid, this isn't doing anything, instead of running with those thoughts, you can almost visualize that those thoughts are moving by like a train. And so you see the thoughts and wow, these are really strong thoughts, but they keep going by. And what you learn is that simply because you have thoughts doesn't mean you have to go with them. This is a powerful exercise to teach yourself daily that simply because thoughts arise does not mean you have to follow them. You can become the observer. What I mean by that is this. I often imagine I almost step outside of myself and look in and say, wow, this guy's thoughts are moving quickly. Or maybe he is feeling a certain way. And by practicing becoming the observer, you eliminate the need to feel like you have to go with whatever thoughts arise. Again, this is practice, like push-ups. It might be simple to understand, but you have to actually do it. So you can focus also, in addition to becoming the observer, if you'd like, you can focus on your breath. That's a very basic form of meditation. So for instance, you might breathe in for something like a 4 count. You might hold it at the top of the breath for 2, and then you might exhale for 4 again, and then maybe you sit at the bottom of the breath for 2. This is a very basic way that you can begin to practice a simple breathing meditation. And of course, those numbers aren't set in stone. You can find out what works for you. There are different thoughts on different types of how long you count and all that. But the focus is this. You're focusing on your breath. You can also do a kind of meditation where, for instance, one of the oldest meditations in Zen Buddhism is something called the secret of the golden flower. And that sounds fancy, but really the idea is to be visualizing that you're gathering the light. And now when we get into something like that, maybe it taps into something that is more spiritual, and maybe you think that doesn't fit with me. That's okay too. One aspect of meditation that can radically transform your life, however, is compassion meditation. And research has demonstrated overwhelmingly that when we practice compassion meditation, we actually become more compassionate. And you might say, why would I want to be more compassionate? Maybe I need to not be more compassionate. Maybe that'll keep me safer. But the reality is that the more compassionate we are, the better we feel physiologically. So even if you're compassionate for others in the most self-centered way, you're actually increasing how you feel. One way to do compassion meditations comes from the tradition of Buddhism in something called a Tonguelin Meditation. And in Tonguelin Meditation, we visualize that we breathe in the pain of others. And as we're breathing in the pain of others, we visualize that that pain actually never touches us because we all have divinity within. And as we're breathing in that pain, it becomes transformed, it becomes healed, so that when we breathe out, we send healing energy back to that person. Now imagine at a minimum, and maybe someone's saying, well, that's hocus pocus, that's all belief, I don't believe that. That's okay. Imagine that if at a minimum, even if you didn't have a belief system in that, imagine what it might do for your psychology if you regularly practiced breathing in the pain of others, healing it within, and then sending healing back to them. At a minimum, think about where your thoughts would be centered. They would be centered on compassion, on healing, on helping. And anytime we are intent on healing or helping others, we get out of our own pain. The bottom line is that anxiety, anger, sadness, depression, all of that happens when we are struggling internally with ourselves. And when we're able to practice focusing on others or taking the time to help others, we are, by definition, not focusing on ourselves. And in those moments, that pain that we had been struggling with lessens. The more you practice meditation, the better you get at it. I developed a meditation called 7 breaths, and I want to share it with you because what it does is it helps your mind think in big ways. And 7 breaths is essentially Tonguelin Meditation, where you breathe in the pain of others, it becomes healed, and you send it back to them. And I want you to stick with me to just hear this out. The first breath you would take would be for yourself, for your loved ones. You breathe in everyone's pain, you breathe, it becomes healed, you breathe back healing to them. The next breath might be for the land you're on or the continent you're on. Every living being in that continent, you're breathing in that pain. And again, it doesn't come to you. You're not taking it on because it's transformed almost like feet in front of you. And as you breathe out, you're breathing healing energy back. And then you take the next breath for the world. And then the next breath is for the galaxy. And the next Tonguelin breath is for the surrounding galaxies. And then the next breath is for the entire universe. And the 7th breath becomes the breath for all dimensions. Anything we can't think about, we don't even know about, that's beyond anything. Now, think about this. If you took those 7 breaths, those Tonguelin breaths, and you were thinking of healing yourself, your loved ones, your country or continent, your planet, your galaxy, the surrounding galaxies, the universe, and then all dimensions, past, present, future. Imagine at a minimum what that does to your psyche to think in such big ways. Now, again, if this goes too far and that's not something that resonates with you or fits with you, don't even have to think about it again. I wanted just to give you an option if you want to recognize the benefits of what can happen for you when you practice meditation. Let's come all the way back to the basic form. Sitting in stillness, focusing on your breath, maybe focusing on something outside of you, maybe focusing on gathering the light or the divinity. Whatever it is, practice that for 5 minutes a day for 6 straight weeks. And why do I say those numbers? Because Harvard demonstrated that practicing meditation for 5 minutes a day for 6 straight weeks makes physiological changes in your brain. Now, if you have the time to sit for 10 minutes, that's wonderful. But I often don't invite people to sit longer than 10 minutes. And the reason is the same reason why you might teach someone not to do 1,000 push-ups the first time they do push-ups. Because maybe they get really excited for the first week and they do their 1,000 push-ups a day, but it's very difficult to maintain that level of schedule constantly. And just as with push-ups, if you stop doing them, you stop having the same benefit as when you are doing them. The same is true with meditation. So if you can keep it to 5 to 10 minutes, and 5 minutes is really ideal, and there's a lot of neurological evidence to back up that time frame. But if you keep it to that, you're much more likely to continually practice it. My hope for you is that you find peace. And peace doesn't happen when we try to control the outside world, because that's not possible. So regardless of the sounds that come up around you, stay present. Recognize that when you hear something, you can actually even use that sound to go deeper within. The more you practice meditation, the better you get at it. The more you practice telling yourself, I would like this not to be happening, but it's not the end of the world and I can handle it. The better you're able to tap into that type of phrase, even when you're in the midst of uncomfortable moments. As with everything I do it because I want to send peace to everyone I encounter. So more than anything, as always, I wish you much peace.